Welcome to the Q&A from students portion of the class. I like to go over a lot of the popular questions that have been asked. I've been teaching this course for over 20 years now. This is, in fact, the third time I've recorded this specific class. There was Access 102, which was back in 2002, I think, the first video recording I did of this class. And then there was the Access 2010 version, which was back in 2010. Maybe I don't know. No, I think I was a year late with it. So 2011 that came out, and so this is the third time that I've re-recorded this exact class. I did not do relationships the last time I covered this. I waited until the expert series to do relationships. So that part of this class is new. So I'm expecting a bunch of questions on that, which I normally cover in the expert series. But let's go down the list of the popular questions that have come up in this class over the last 20 years. I pulled them off my website, off the forums, off the emails people have sent me. First off, how do you customize the ribbon? It says, I see you've got some different buttons on top of your ribbon on the toolbar. How do you do that? Well, I cover customizing the ribbon and the quick access toolbar in Access Expert Level 5. And again, I'll put links to all this stuff down below. But let me show you real quick what I do. So this is the ribbon here. Now it's collapsed now. If you double click on any of these, you see it expands the ribbon. If you double click again, it minimizes it. I like to keep it minimized most of the time, except when I'm building, of course. I'm going to cover customizing the actual ribbon itself later, but this thing up here is called the Quick Launch Toolbar, or the Quick Access Toolbar. And you can customize this guy by just dropping this little button down here. All right, and you can add things to it like this. Like if you want to add save, click save, and it adds a little save floppy disk icon there. I've got some custom buttons on here that I've added with macros to launch certain things. Like this opens up my main menu. So if I close that, I can just click on this guy to open up the main menu. Other databases that I've got, I can open up the customer form or whatever other forms I use. I'm going to turn that save by off, okay? And I put design view on here, running a queries on here. And if you drop this down, here's some popular commands up here, but you go to more commands down below, and it opens up this guy, okay? You can customize the quick access toolbar this way. You can go through all the popular commands. You can go through each of the individual sections in here. And again, I'll cover all of this in Access Expert 5. But you basically pick what you want, like let's say datasheet view, and add it to your quick launch toolbar. Now when I hit OK, it shows up top. It says you have to close the database, but you really don't. There it is, right there. Datasheet view. See? All right, which we're not going to use that. So I'll turn that back off by going into more commands. And where's datasheet view? Right there, and remove. That's all. These are all just things that I've added. All right, so that's how I do it, and we'll cover that a lot more in Access Expert 5. Next up, can't see text. I've got a text box on my form that doesn't seem to be working. I can't see any text in it. I know the data is being saved in the table, but it won't show in the form. This is actually something that's come up probably 3 or 4 times in the past couple of years. Let me show you what happened. In each case, I had to have them send me some screenshots, or one customer actually had to have send me the database so I could figure out what the problem is. Let me show you. Okay, so here I am in a customer form. Okay, design view. Now I'm going to stop recording for a second, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from their end. Okay, I put it back in a regular form view. Ready? I'm just going to type something in here. I'll type in Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-O. What's going on? Why can't I see anything? All right. If you select the text, sometimes you can see it, but no, I'm not seeing anything. But I know if I go back to the table, it's in there. It put Dennis in there. What's the problem? It's real simple and it's real easy, but it's one of those things that'll drive you nuts if you don't know what it is. In every single one of these cases, here's what happened. The user had this selected and went up here and changed the foreground color to white accidentally. That's it. Sometimes it's the simplest solutions that are the ones that drive you the most nuts. But that's all it was. They just changed the foreground color. That happened probably 4 or 5 times in the last few years. Someone said something. I'll figure out, put it in the video for you guys. So if it happens to you, you'll know what the problem is. Next up, is it possible to print a form in design view? Not really. Remember, forms are used for working with on the screen, okay, for entering data, for looking data up. All right, when you want to print stuff out, printing right there tells me report. You print reports, all right, and you can format them the same way. However, if you do want to print out the design view of a form, all right, you can come in here. Let's say you're in this form. You want to go to design view, all right. If you want to print this, maybe for your own records, or you want to show someone else your layout or your field names or whatever, you can just do a screen capture of this. Because if you go to print this right now, all right, the only way you can get, there's no print on here. There's no print if you right-click on here. You have to go to File, Print, because you're not supposed to print forms. And then what it does is I'll do a print preview. And you get this, but it goes back to form view. First of all, you're not in design view, and it looks like this. I mean, yeah, you can print out forms. They're not supposed to be printed. You want to use reports for that, okay? But you can use something called the snip and sketch tool. It comes with Windows, and just do a screen capture of it. Right? Go into your database, go into design view, like this, and then just snip this out, and paste it into Paint or Word or whatever you want to use to print it. Okay? And yeah, people ask me this, so that's why it's in this video. Next up, and this is a very popular question, can I start my AutoNumbers at a value greater than 1? Yeah, you can, but I want to underscore that AutoNumbers are not for you. Don't worry about what the AutoNumbers are. Everyone is always like, well, I don't want to start my customers at customer number 1. Yeah, you don't want to do that, of course, because you don't want someone knowing that they're customer number 4. So if you want a number that is customized or random or whatever, there's other techniques you can use, but don't use AutoNumbers for those. AutoNumbers are for making relationships in the database only. You shouldn't care about them. Go watch those 2 videos. My AutoNumbers video, it's a separate video just on AutoNumbers and why you should use them. And I have a counter video too for people who want to make their own custom counter. Let's say you want to make order numbers for your customers that are customized just for them. So each customer's orders are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're just for that customer. All right, or you want to start your AutoNumber at, not AutoNumber, excuse me, your counter at like 5,000. You can do that, but don't do it with AutoNumbers. Do it with regular numbers, and you'll have to use a little tiny bit of VBA code to get them to count up like that, but it's not hard to do. I show you how to do it in that video, and we will talk about this more when we get into the developer series. In fact, in that AutoNumbers video, I talk about something called the German tank problem. The Allies in World War II were able to figure out how many tanks the Germans were producing because they would capture tanks in battle, and they would be able to see the serial numbers on some of the parts. And so based on that, they could deduce what kind of weaponry they're looking at dealing with. The same thing applies to business, because if you have AutoNumbers for your IDs for your orders, let's say, and you print out an invoice and it's order 1007, and then 6 months later you print out 1009 for the same customer, or 1011, they'll know you've only put a couple orders in your system since then. So there's a long, big discussion on AutoNumbers, so go watch that video if you want to learn more about them. But the bottom line is, don't worry about what your AutoNumbers are. They're not for you. They're for Access. They're for internal use only. Next up, I created a combo box, but instead of being able to click on it to open it, it's always open. What did I do wrong? We'll talk about this in Access Beginner Level 8. What you created was called a list box. Let me show you the difference. All right, so in our database earlier today, we made this thing here a combo box. It dropped this down and pick a customer. Okay? What's happening to some people is, instead of using the combo box tool, they used the list box tool, which is on here, and it's right there. It's very similar. It's almost identical to a combo box. And you can actually change between them. Watch this. Right-click, change to list box. Look at that. I'm going to move it over here so you can see it better. Get rid of that label. All right, now watch this. It works just the same. If I save this and close it and reopen it again, look at that. It's always open. It's a list box. Sometimes you want to see this. Sometimes you want an open-faced list, and sometimes you want a combo box where it closes. The major difference with a combo box is you can actually start typing the data in a combo box. You can type in SMI, and it'll go right to Peter Smith or Joe Smith. All right, so all you have to do to convert them between the two is right-click, change it back to a combo box, and there it is. Slide it back into place, and there we go. Okay. Open it up. There's your combo box back. All right, combo box and list boxes. And again, we'll talk about the difference in Access Beginner 8. Next up, is there a maximum size to an Access database? I've got a many Excel sheets. I should have proofread that better. Sometimes I just copy and paste these from customers' emails or from their forum posts. I've got many Excel sheets, much better, with tens of thousands of records to add. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty big task you got ahead there. The maximum size of any single Access database file is 2 gigabytes. Now, that doesn't sound like it's very big, in the days today with terabyte drives. But 2 gigabytes is actually a lot of data. My whole database, I've been running this business that I have now since 2002. So this is my 20th anniversary this year. I got about 50,000 customers, all the related products, all the related orders, all the related contacts and emails they sent me, all that data together for the past 20 years, and my database is still barely over 1 gigabyte. And that's because I do proper optimizations. I don't store extra junk in there that I don't need. For example, we don't store images and attachments and all that kind of stuff in our database files. Why? We'll get to that later. But 2 gigabytes is a pretty good sized database. Now, if you do need more space than that, you can link multiple database files together. We will talk about that in Access Expert 21, where we cover splitting your database. I have a Tech Help free video as well. That's the split video right there. But in Access Expert 21, we'll give it the full treatment, where we'll talk about multi-user database theory and creating a database that's split across multiple files. Okay? Similar question, is there a maximum number of fields I can have in a table? I need about 300 different bits of information on each customer. The max is 255. You can have 255 fields in any table. Now, realistically, you should never go above 100. I've built some pretty big databases, and if I get a table that's over maybe 50 fields, I start thinking about what can I do to remove some of these fields from this table and put them in a different table. You can, just like you can break databases up into multiple files, you can break tables up into multiple tables. In Access Expert 4, for example, we're going to set up what's called an extended customer table. Okay? Let's say you got 10,000 customers and you have, let's say, demographic information, but you only have it for 10% of your customers. There's no need to put all those empty fields in the customer table, right? When you can put that in a second table and link them together with an ID. That'll be a one-to-one relationship. And again, we'll cover that in Access Expert Level 4. Okay? Another popular question, do they have a version of Microsoft Access available for the Mac? Nope. That's a simple answer. Nope, they don't. They got Word, they got Excel, no Access. You'll find a lot that Access, it's not as popular as Word and Excel and some of the other Office applications. So Microsoft doesn't give it the love that they give Excel and Word. But there is no Access version available. You can use a PC emulator like Parallels. But honestly, I'm not a Mac person. I haven't used a Mac since high school. We're going back to the 80s here. So I don't know Mac. If you have Mac questions, go on my Access forum on my website and post them for Alex. He's my resident Mac expert, and he should be able to answer them for you. But no, they don't have an Access version for Mac. Another one, I just deleted a text box, combo box, checkbox, any kind of control here on a form. I get asked this a lot. All right, I deleted it, I saved the form, closed it, reopened it. Is there a way to get it back? Generally, the answer is no. Once you close that form and reopen it again, you're done. The undo is cleared. There's no way to get it back. The only way you can get it back is to restore one of your backups or just recreate the control. Okay? And there's a video there. I've got a link to it on backups. Backing up your database is very important. And I recommend everyone go watch that video to learn how to back up your database. There's a little green triangle in the upper left corner of my text box on the form. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a couple things. One, you might have spelled the control source wrong, or the field isn't in the table. Okay? Or it could be on a command button that's got the same shortcut key as something else. Let me show you an example of each of these. So remember earlier when I copied this notes field and we put it on the appointment form? Remember that? And fortunately, we had a field called notes in both tables under both forms. Well, what if I take company name, okay, copy that, and paste it over here? All right, look what I got. I got this little green hoo-hoo dilly there. Yeah, it's a technical term. It's a hoo-hoo dilly. And all that means is, if you drop this little box down here, it says invalid control property control source. No such field in the field list. So you can edit it. You can edit the form's record source property, blah, 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 blah. Basically, this just means that this thing called company name doesn't exist in this list of fields for this table. Okay? Now, usually, yeah, you can copy fields back and forth between forms. You'll see that error. A lot of the times I see it also when people are typing stuff in, they don't type it in right. All right, so you're typing in the control source description and you type it in wrong, like that, and you see that happen. Okay, so I'm going to undo that if I can. Yep, there we go. All right, so that's usually what the problem is there. The other way you might see that little arrow is if you use the same shortcut key on a button. We haven't covered this yet, but, all right, so we got this appointments button that we made here, okay? If you go to design view, okay, here's a little trick. I'm going to teach you this. What class do I teach you this in? This is a trick from Access Expert 4. What you can do is you can go into the caption here of a button and you can put a little ampersand in front of any character. And when you do that, notice there's an underscore underneath it now. So I can just press Alt and that character to push that button. So if I go Alt A, boop, it opens up the appointment form. See, it's just like I push that button. Now, you'll also see that little green hoo-hoo dilly if you have two buttons with the same caption. See that? How when I copied it, it popped up that little guy there too. See? All right, duplicate keyboard shortcut. That's all that is. So you can change it on this button, get rid of it there, maybe put it in front of the P. So now you'll get _P. See, and now I can press Alt P to push that button. That's all that is. Usually that little green hoo-hoo dilly just means that there's something not right. And if you click on the little warning thing that comes up, it'll tell you what you got to do. Very similar error message. I get this a lot too. One of my text boxes says #name ? In it. What does that mean? That just usually means that that field doesn't exist. Right? Same situation as before. If I go into design view here, if I copy a field like company name that doesn't exist over here, and if I save this and open it back up again, you get the #name error message. That means that that particular field doesn't exist in that form, in the table under the form. Okay, remember these forms are bound to tables. All the data is saved in the tables. Right? Remember that from Access 1, right? All your data is stored in these tables. These forms don't have any data in them. These queries don't have any data in them. All right? They're just looking at the data in the tables in different ways. Okay? I'm getting an unrecognized database format error when I try to start my database. What's that mean? That means your database is somehow corrupted. It does happen, especially if you're running a database over a network and you've got it shared between different people. But it can just happen to you too. If you're the only one running your database and it's on your computer, they can get corrupted from time to time. So there's a couple things you can do. First, you can do what's called a compact and repair. All right, we will learn about compact and repair in Access Beginner 4, but there's a free video on it right there if you want to check that out right now to see what happens if your database becomes corrupted. Of course, watch the backup video because, yeah, your database can be corrupted to the point where you can't compact and repair it. Compact and repair tries to fix any problems, and it squeezes out any empty space that you can get rid of. You know, when you add and delete records, right? You add, delete, add, delete, add, delete. It leaves little holes in your database of empty space. So the compact gets rid of it. It's kind of like sticking your foot in the garbage can and pressing down on the garbage to get rid of all that empty space between, you know, the pieces of garbage. Windows defragmentation. Your Windows hard drive used to do that too, but Windows kind of handles that by itself automatically now. But back in the old days, you know, Windows 95, we used to have to run a defrag utility once in a while. Okay, and if compact and repair doesn't help and you can't restore from a backup, go run down my troubleshooter. See where it says trouble there, that link? I have a troubleshooter checklist on my website. All right, complete with a video. It's got all the different things you can try to run down to fix your database. And I try to put them in the order of, you know, the easiest stuff to check first. All right, check for viruses, do a Windows update, you know, all this stuff. Remove third-party components, reinstall Office, reinstall Windows. So, I mean, there's a whole big long list of things to try here. Okay, and sometimes databases just get corrupted, like any file. All right, especially if you're using it and like the power goes out and your computer shuts off without saving the database properly. Okay, so there's some things to try. Next up, can you change the background color of a checkbox? Nope. Sorry, I get asked this a lot. The default checkbox control, you can't change it. This guy right here, this checkbox, can't change that. That's just that color. Sorry. That's just the limitation of Access. There are other controls you can use. There are things like toggle buttons and stuff. There are third-party components you can install that have colored checkboxes. I don't like using third-party components, but to answer this question that everybody always asks me, nope, you can't change that checkbox's background color. Sorry. And again, we'll get to we'll talk about some alternatives like toggle buttons in Access Expert 4. Can you add data from multiple tables to the same form? Yes, you can, but I strongly recommend that you don't, unless some of that data is just read-only. All right, and I see this a lot from people where you take like the two tables we have. We have customers and appointments. People try to merge those together because you can join them in a query. Let me give you a little preview. I'm going to cover this in the next class, but I'm going to give you a little tiny preview. All right, so if you want to see your customers and your appointments together, you can create a query. Okay, you can bring in both tables. And notice that Access joins them together because it sees a field here called customer ID that's the same in both tables. All right, I'm going to close this. Okay, so if I bring in the customer ID, the first name, the last name, and I can bring over here in the date, time, and description of the appointment, okay, I can save this. Let's call this customer appointment queue. And now I have a query that brings both of those things together. Okay, now you can put this in a form. You can base a form on this query and display all this information, but it's not reliable when you go to edit one or the other. Okay, you can come over here and edit the customer, sure. You can come over here and edit the appointment, sure. But when you get into more complex queries, that's not always reliable. So I don't recommend you do this. What I recommend you do is what we did in class, which is if you have information from one table here, you want to see the related table, open it up with a button and put it over here. Yeah, I messed this up in the previous question. Okay, or you can use a subform. And again, we'll talk about subforms in a future lesson. Here are some other videos to watch. All right, the relational combo box video, I mentioned that earlier. That's for making the combo box to pick a value. There's subforms. If you want to learn about subforms now, that's where you can take like the appointments and put them inside the customer form. Okay. Sometimes what happens is when you do join multiple tables together in a query, the data becomes unupdatable or not updatable. I got a whole video that discusses that. Okay, you join two tables together, now all of a sudden you can't edit any of them. And that just happens. Okay. Again, we're going to talk a lot more about this in the expert series when we get to relationships and bringing together multiple tables. Access Expert 1 and Expert 4. We'll talk a lot more about this stuff. All right, what are the thumbtacks on the recent file list? And this, for some reason, people ask me this all the time. I thought they were pretty much self-evident. Okay, you're in your database, you go to File. Okay, and over here, when you hover over these, you'll see this little thumbtack pop up. See that little thumbtack? Okay, well, if you thumbtack something, click it, right? See the thumbtack, now it's locked. Now that guy will be locked and always show up at the top of your recent file list. Or you can go to the pinned, and there's just the stuff that you've pinned. See that? That's all. All that is. Nothing crazy. And finally, what is an LACCDB file? It shows up whenever I open my Access database. That's called a file locking file. It's the lock. It stores lock information for your database. Basically, an Access database is designed from the ground up to be multi-user aware. Okay, so you can have multiple people using the same database file. So when you are editing Joe Smith's record, okay, if someone else tries to edit Joe Smith's record, they get a warning message that says, oh, you can't open Joe Smith and make changes to it. It's already being edited by someone else. That's called record locking. And that LACCDB file controls that. All right, so here I am in my database folder. When I open up this database, all right, let me minimize it. You'll see right there, there's an LACCDB file, and it's tiny. All right, it's only 1 kilobyte. But this guy will be this guy will exist the whole time that this database is open, right? And if I move it over here, let me move it out of the size. See? All right, now as soon as I close this database, here, let me bring this over here like that. Okay, as soon as I close this database, it'll go away. See? Now sometimes it doesn't, especially if your computer locks up and it might be left behind. Can you delete it? Sure, you can delete it if you want to. You don't have to keep it around, but it's not going to hurt anything. And the next time you start the database up, it should see it and take over and work with it. Okay, but that's all that is. It's a file locking database. It manages what is open and what's not open in your database as far as tables that are being accessed and being edited and stuff. Okay, that's one of those things that you don't got to worry about. That's one of the more advanced like developer stuff. Like even me, I don't mess with LACDB files. Just leave them alone. All right, so those are the popular questions that I get asked. If you have questions and you want to see them answered, you can post them in the forum on the website. The page that you're on now, if you scroll down to the bottom, all right, you'll see the forum. Each class has its own forum page where you can post questions about this specific class right down there on the bottom of the page. Or you can go to the actual Access forum if you want to, which you'll find that on my website. You can post there too. If it's a generic Access question that's not necessarily pertaining to Access Beginner 2, feel free to post it there. If not, just scroll down the bottom of the page and post it there. All right, so I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed the class. And stick around. The next lesson, we'll do a brief preview of what's coming up in Access Beginner Level 3. So we'll see you soon. Want more? If you'd like to see me post the next lesson in the series for free here on my YouTube channel, be sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and post a comment saying, "I'd like the next lesson, please." Click on the link in the description below for more details on how this works.